At the top of the Maslow's pyramid of needs is this concept called self-actualization, which is I have a need to become the best I can be. I have a need to explore and go beyond what's been done before. It's a human need. It's an attribute. And so that's something that very few people actually accomplish in their life, is this idea of self-actualization. And so that's really what it came down to, right? Experts are effective and influential if they're confident, and entrepreneurs will just absolutely fail if they're not confident, right?
Now, what about, Alan, when someone feels like they've reached the ceiling when it comes to a certain subject? So there are people who feels like this is all there is to know about it. I'm an expert. The world knows I'm an expert. And that's all there is. How does someone like that still improve and still break the barrier, break through and learn more and become better experts at it?
There's one really important principle at advancing, and that is changing, right? One of the things that we discover in the research, the researchers that are out there that study expertise, is they see that this logarithmic curve of expert development, beginners often use this really lousy language that really I find detestable when they say, I'm a quick learner. Well, yeah, you're a quick learner because you don't know anything, right? Because, the things that you learn are all around you, right? And it's only after you've been immersed in that for a long time that you recognize all these things are all around you. And now you need to recognize things that are beyond that. And the way you do that is by changing the learning environment. It's by changing the process of learning. It's by changing people that are around you, the questions that are being asked, the questions that you're asking. And one of the things that trainers, physical trainers, right? This is an area that's been studied a lot, whether you're playing tennis or swinging a baseball bat or some other physical skill, is the importance of honing a specific skill and then changing it to another subcomponent of your expertise. So if I was playing tennis one day or for an extended period, Sean, we would be working on your backhand, right? And we would break it down into a bunch of sub pieces, right? And so if any expert thinks about their scope of expertise, they can always break it down into different subcomponents and then work on each of those subcomponents individually.
Got it. Now, there was one very interesting thing that you mentioned, and that is beginners or new hires would always say, I'm a quick learner. So, is there a better question to ask applicants than how fast do you learn? Do you consider yourself a quick learner? Is there a better way to ask that to really know if they are someone who can pick up the pace in their learning, even if they are already midway? Because as you mentioned earlier, if you're beginning, then obviously you're going to learn things quick because you're starting from a blank slate. But what if you're midway, you've learned the fundamentals, and now we get to the adult, the mature, the more advanced stuff? How well and how fast do you learn? Is there a way for us to uncover that through asking a series of interview questions?
I'm not aware of any, Sean. I'm not. I wish I had a brilliant, pithy, simple answer to that question, but I don't know of one. It is interesting, however, that along that curve of expert development, right, that you go up pretty quickly. There's this concept that I think is humorous, really. There were some researchers out of Cornell University, and they watched a news report of a crime scene, and there was an individual who observed that if you put lemon juice on a piece of paper, if you use as ink, it made invisible ink, right? That you could write on a piece of paper and people could see it. He, for some reason, got this perception that if I put lemon juice on my face, I would be invisible to cameras. And he put lemon juice on his face and then went into a bank with a gun and held up the bank because he didn't believe that the cameras would be able to pick up his face. And his face was then broadcast on the news that night, and he was arrested a few hours later. And people were absolutely baffled at the level of incompetence that anyone could actually exhibit, right? And that actually was the impetus for some research from two researchers out of Cornell, once again, called Dunning and Kruger, right? These two guys did their research of why would someone have such a poor perception of their own competence? And they discovered it over and over and over again, whether you're in IT or in healthcare or in another field. When we start down the path of exposure, we get this inflated confidence of our own ability. It's really a strange phenomenon. In fact, so much so that this initial spike in confidence that someone feels when they first get exposure, I read a Wikipedia article on a subject and I think I'm an expert on it, right? We get this inflated confidence, and the researchers actually call this spike in confidence Mount Stupid, right? They say you're just totally ignorant of your own ignorance, right? And so this whole idea of Dunning-Kruger has been out there for a while now, but I see it happen over and over and over again. And it goes back to this idea of, look, yes, you're a quick learner, but you need to get to the stage where learning is even harder to identify those things that are incrementally valuable.
Is there a way to expedite that? So I'm assuming that we all go I think I've, climbed Mount Stupid multiple times inside my head, Alan. And I'm wondering, is there a way for me or for anyone else to expedite getting out of Mount Stupid and into the real world learning setting where I can finally be a little less ignorant about my ignorance and be more of walking the journey to becoming an expert?
Yeah, and the answer is that there are definitely principles that help anyone in any skill or knowledge advance in their progress, right? There's a researcher who is probably, I would say, one of the fathers of research into expertise, a gentleman by the name of Anders Ericsson. And he's written a bunch of books and tons of articles on his research into expertise. And I was fortunate to interview him in pursuit of my book before he passed away last year. And phenomenal guy and a researcher into advancing expertise, progressing beyond the plateaus, right? He was really exceptional in that regard. And there's a whole bunch of things that can be done. One of the things that we need to do is find mentors who've been down the path before, right? It's a lot easier to learn about podcasting from somebody who's podcasted in the past, right? People who've been in front of a camera from people who've been in front of cameras, right? There's a whole bunch of things, the principles like that Ericsson sort of points out that we can and should do in order to advance our expertise at an accelerated pace, like you mentioned.
Got it. And what's the problem? Why aren't more people doing it? Why aren't more people going out of their way and asking for help from mentors?
I think it's probably because most of us believe that good enough is good enough, right? We advance down the process of a development of expertise, and we get to a point that I would refer to, and the literature seems to reference it, is just an element of proficiency, right? I'm pretty good, right? I've got a level of work that is adequate. My managers don't sort of question my ability to deliver, right? And so I'm proficient. I'm good enough. Right. And getting beyond that to the truly exceptional, right, is a big leap, and it's hard. It's hard to develop expertise. It takes practice. It takes time. It takes commitment. Oftentimes you're never thanked for it. And so why do it? And when you do put yourself out there in expertise, you get shot at more than you get praised, right? People are critical of you more than they're, admiring, right? And so it's a hard sort of thankless world, but it's an important one because it's the truly exceptional, it's the truly expert that actually change the world, right? They make a big difference, disproportionately so. So I think that we all need to pursue expertise beyond a level of proficiency. We just need to be just the best there is at it. I think it's a fundamental, just taking it a step further. We're all familiar. I mean, most people who are listening to this would probably be familiar with this hierarchy of needs, right? At the base of our needs, we have these physiological needs. I need to sleep and eat and have shelter, right? And we go up to like social needs. At the top of the Maslow's pyramid of needs is this concept called self-actualization, which is I have a need to become the best I can be. I have a need to explore and go beyond what's been done before. It's a human need. It's an attribute. And so that's something that very few people actually accomplish in their life, is this idea of self-actualization. But it is a need. It's a fundamental biological, wired into the human DNA sort of need that we all should be pursuing.
Got it. That's very interesting. And I do completely agree with you that a lot of people are happy with Proficient. And now thinking about it, it's quite tragic, isn't it? I think that what you have when you research and speak and write about expertise might be something that the world direly needs right now. You make a great point when you mention that there's criticism there. Even if you are able to break through and become an expert in something, you get criticized. It's thankless often. There's no real recognition for most of us. How can people reach down inside and realize that it is a need? Because right now I don't think that a lot of people have done that, have meditated on it, have thought long and hard about it. So much so that we see a lot of people who are proficient and they are in the job market and they're respected, but that's it. How do we move people to get there?
Yeah, well, I think programs like yours are really helpful in encouraging people and pointing out and telling them that we need them. We need more experts in the world, more truly exceptional people, right? And it's fascinating to me how many young people, for example, will have this desire to become excellent basketball players or football players. Athletic performances are really desirable and sought after by young people. And how many people actually become, global celebrities on the World Football Leagues, right? It just doesn't happen very much. And yet there are some people who spend a huge amount of energy just barely miss that level. And that's not to diminish their accomplishment or their potential, right? But there are so many different fields that justify this same level of commitment and enthusiasm and energy. And it's a lot more fulfilling when we find that field where we can be truly exceptional. And we need people. We need your audience to be experts. I hope that if they learn anything from your time on this podcast, I hope they know that the world needs them to be truly exceptional in the field that they choose.
I completely agree with you. And if you, the listener, are hearing this, know that it is our hope for you to be an expert, to lead, to be influential, to use your platform someday to make a positive dent in our world today.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
What makes someone an expert is not the accumulation of all available knowledge. It's the accumulation of all available knowledge and then going beyond the accumulated knowledge, right? That's the distinction, right, of someone who is proficient versus someone who steps into the darkness of excellence, right? It's someone who goes beyond what is already known.